Picture a room. No windows. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Stacks of paper, hundreds of pages covering every surface. Empty coffee cups on the floor. Heavy metal blasting through headphones so loud the neighbors have complained twice this week. And in the middle of it all, one man, barefoot, sitting cross-legged on a chair, reading a document that no one on Wall Street has bothered to open. It is 2005. The American housing market is at its peak. Home prices are rising. Banks are celebrating. Economists are calling it the golden era of real estate. Every expert, every institution, every financial authority on the planet agrees on one thing: the housing market is safe. This man disagrees. And in disagreeing, in being willing to stand completely, utterly, humiliatingly alone, he will make one of the greatest financial calls in the history of modern capitalism. He will make $700 million for his investors, $100 million for himself, and he will expose a lie so big, so deeply embedded in the system that it will shake the entire world. His name is Michael James Burry, and this is his full story. To understand Michael Burry the investor, you first have to understand Michael Burry the child, because the same qualities that made him extraordinary and deeply difficult on Wall Street were forged long before he ever touched a balance sheet. He was born on June 19, 1971, in San Jose, California. By the age of 2, he had been diagnosed with retinoblastoma, a rare cancer of the eye. Doctors removed his left eye. From that day forward, he wore a prosthetic, a small, artificial window to the world. Think about what it means to grow up like that, to be literally different from every other child, to see the world from an angle no one else shares, to have people notice, to have people stare, and to have to develop a relationship with being an outsider before you even understand what that word means. He was a quiet child, bookish, intensely focused. He had difficulty with eye contact, something he would later attribute to Asperger's syndrome, a form of autism he self-diagnosed as an adult when his own son received the same diagnosis. Asperger's gave him a mind that could focus on a single problem with almost inhuman intensity. Hours vanished, days blurred. When Michael Burry decided to understand something, he did not stop until he had read every word ever written about it. At school, he was not the popular kid. He was not the athlete or the class president. He was the boy in the corner with the book, always slightly outside the circle, always watching, always analyzing. That observation, that distance, was not a flaw. It was training. Decades of involuntary training in seeing systems from the outside rather than being consumed by them from within. Burry went to UCLA for his undergraduate degree, studying economics and pre-medicine simultaneously. Then he went to Vanderbilt University School of Medicine and earned his MD in 1997. He was going to be a doctor, a neurologist. It was a serious, stable, respectable path, exactly the kind of path a careful, analytical person would choose. And then the night shifts happened. As a resident at Stanford Hospital, exhausted, sleep-deprived, still wearing scrubs at 2 in the morning, Burry found himself doing something strange during his breaks. He was not resting, he was not watching television, he was reading financial statements, annual reports, balance sheets. He was posting stock analyses on early internet forums under his own name, detailed, rigorous breakdowns of undervalued companies that read more like academic papers than casual posts. The internet forums noticed. Professional fund managers started reading his posts. People from Vanguard, from White Mountains Insurance Group, from some of the most respected institutions in finance, they were all quietly reading the analysis of a sleep-deprived medical resident who had never worked a single day in finance. Joel Greenblatt, one of the most celebrated value investors alive, founder of Gotham Capital, reached out personally. He had read Burry's online writings and was stunned. Here was someone who understood the deep mechanics of value investing at a level most professionals never reach. Greenblatt offered to invest $1 million if Burry ever started a fund. On June 30th, 1997, Michael Burry walked out of his medical residency. He left his stethoscope behind. He left the hospital. He left the career he had trained for across nearly a decade of grueling education. And he started a hedge fund with money from his family, his mother contributing $20,000, his 3 brothers $10,000 each, plus Joel Greenblatt's $1 million and $600,000 from White Mountains Insurance. He named a fund Scion Capital, after a fantasy novel he loved called The Scions of Shannara, a story about an unlikely hero who refuses to follow the path everyone expects of him. Scion Capital launched in November 2000. The timing, by accident or instinct, was remarkable. The dot-com bubble had just burst, the Nasdaq had collapsed, the S&P 500 was in freefall, panic was everywhere. Most new funds in that environment struggled, some collapsed entirely. Scion Capital returned 55% in its first full year, while the S&P fell 11.88%. How? The same way Burry did everything.
He read things other people did not read. While investors were chasing technology stocks with inflated price-to-earnings ratios, Burry was looking at boring, overlooked companies with solid fundamentals that the market had mispriced. He was applying the principles of Benjamin Graham, the father of value investing, with a ruthless, almost obsessive precision. He was not charming, he was not a great networker, he did not go to the right parties or play golf with the right people. He sat in a room in Cupertino, California, barefoot, blasting heavy metal, and he read. He read everything. Earnings reports, footnotes, regulatory filings, the fine print that other managers handed off to analysts. Burry read it himself because he trusted no one's interpretation but his own. By the end of 2004, Scion Capital was managing over $600 million in assets. The doctor-turned-investor from San Jose was no longer a curiosity. He was a force, and he was about to stumble onto something that would change everything. In 2003 and 2004, Burry began turning his analytical mind toward the American housing market. Not because someone told him, not because a trend was emerging on Wall Street, but because something in the mortgage data felt wrong to him. A number here, a structure there, small inconsistencies that most analysts would have dismissed as noise. Burry did not dismiss noise, he investigated it. He began requesting and reading mortgage bond prospectuses, the legal documents that describe the actual loans bundled inside these financial products. These were documents of extraordinary length and complexity. Banks issued them as a formality, assuming no one would ever read them in full. Burry read every word, and what he found inside was staggering. Millions of American homeowners had been given adjustable rate mortgages with artificially low teaser interest rates. These rates were designed to reset, sharply, dramatically upward, within 2 to 3 years of the loan being issued. Many of the borrowers had been given loans they could barely afford at the teaser rate. At the reset rate, repayment would be financially impossible for a significant portion of them. The banks knew this, but the banks did not care, because they had packaged these loans into complex financial products called CDOs, gotten them stamped AAA safe by rating agencies, and sold them to investors around the world. The risk had been moved off the bank's books. Someone else was holding it. And that someone else, pension funds, insurance companies, institutional investors globally, had no idea what was actually inside what they had bought. He ran his models, he stress-tested his assumptions, he checked his work again and again. Every time the answer was the same. This was not a small risk, this was a systemic catastrophe waiting to happen. Burry estimated the housing market would begin collapsing as early as 2007. He was so certain of this that he made the decision to bet his entire fund and his entire reputation against the American housing market. In 2005, Burry went to Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, and Morgan Stanley with an unusual request. He wanted to buy credit default swaps, insurance contracts that would pay him massively if specific mortgage bonds failed. No one had ever asked for this before. The banks were amused. They were certain the housing market was safe. They were delighted to collect premium payments from a man they considered quietly to be delusional. Burry purchased $1.3 billion worth of these contracts. And then, nothing happened. Not right away. 2005 passed, the housing market kept rising. 2006 came, home prices climbed higher. Month after month, Burry paid millions in premiums on his CDS contracts. Month after month, his fund showed paper losses. Month after month, his investors grew more furious. The letters started arriving, then the phone calls, then the legal threats. His investors, people who had trusted him, who had believed in him, were now demanding their money back. Some were threatening to sue. Several accused him of misappropriating funds. The atmosphere inside Scion Capital deteriorated from tension to something closer to siege. Burry did something almost no one could have done in that position. He locked his investors' money into the fund, invoking legal provisions that prevented withdrawals, and held every single position. He did not hedge. He did not reduce his exposure to save face. He did not take partial profits to quiet his investors. He held, because the math told him to hold, because the prospectuses told him to hold, because 2 years of reading documents that no one else had read gave him a conviction that no amount of social pressure could dissolve. There is a lesson here that goes far beyond finance. Most people fold under social pressure, not because they stop believing in what they know to be true, but because the loneliness of being right alone becomes unbearable. Burry endured that loneliness for 2 full years. That endurance, that stubborn, painful, costly commitment to his own analysis is what separated him from every other investor of his generation. In 2007, the first cracks appeared. Delinquency rates on subprime mortgages began rising, exactly on the timeline Burry had predicted. The teaser rates were resetting. Families who had been sold loans they could never truly afford were beginning to miss payments. The numbers in the mortgage data, the same numbers Burry had been staring at for 2 years, were finally telling the same story to the rest of the world. By the summer of 2007, mortgage-backed securities began to lose value. By the fall, the collapse had begun in earnest. Bearstein's hedge funds, which had been heavily invested in mortgage bonds, imploded. The crisis began spreading through the global financial system like a fire through dry grass. In September 2008, Lehman Brothers, one of the oldest, most storied investment banks in American history, filed for bankruptcy. It was the single largest bankruptcy in U.S. history. The global financial system stood on the edge of complete collapse. Governments around the world scrambled to write emergency bailout packages worth trillions of dollars. Millions of ordinary Americans lost their homes, their savings evaporated, their retirement accounts were devastated. The real economy, jobs, businesses, communities, bore the consequences of a financial system that had been reckless, dishonest, and catastrophically overconfident. And in his office in Cupertino, Michael Burry watched his credit default swaps pay out exactly as designed. The investors who had threatened to sue him, who had accused him of incompetence, of recklessness, of betraying their trust, received extraordinary returns. The banks that had sold him the CDS contracts while privately laughing at him were now being rescued by the American taxpayer. And in the aftermath, in the silence after the storm, not one of Burry's former investors called to apologize. He noted this years later, with characteristic quiet directness. He did not say it with bitterness. He said it as a fact, a data point about human nature. He closed Scion Capital in 2008. He said the emotional cost of fighting his own investors for 2 years, of being right in the loneliest possible way, had been too much. He needed to step back, to breathe, to be, for a while, just a man and not a symbol. In 2013, Burry returned. He reopened his fund under a new name, Scion Asset Management, and began investing again. But something had changed. His focus had broadened. He was no longer just looking at stocks and bonds. He was thinking about the world at a much larger scale. He began investing in water rights, in farmland, in gold, tangible, scarce, irreplaceable assets, the kind of assets that would hold value when everything built on paper promises and digital speculation eventually ran out of road. He shorted German banks. He bet on Japanese equities when no one was looking at Japan. In 2020, amid the chaos of the pandemic crash, Scion Asset Management returned 33%. Again, reading the situation differently from everyone else. Again, being early. Again, being right. In 2021, he called the inflation surge months before it hit headlines. In 2025, he began warning about the AI bubble, taking short positions against Nvidia and Palantir, two of the most celebrated stocks of the era, through put options. Then in November 2025, he did something that shocked everyone once more. He closed Scion Asset Management entirely. He walked away from managing outside capital again. He launched a Substack newsletter called, appropriately, Cassandra Unchained.
For $379 a year. No more fund, no more investors, no more compromise between his analysis and anyone else's expectations. Just his mind, his research, and the people willing to read what he writes. There are very few people in any field, in finance, in science, in art, who consistently choose authenticity over comfort, who value being true to their own analysis more than they value the approval, the money, and the recognition that comes from telling people what they want to hear. Michael Burry is one of those people. That is why years after The Big Short, years after the awards and the Hollywood film and the billions of words written about him, he is still the most interesting person in finance. Not because of what he owns, but because of how he thinks. So what do we take from all of this? From the boy who lost his eye and learned to see more clearly than anyone, from the doctor who chose data over prestige, from the investor who stood alone for 2 years and refused to fold, from the man who walked away from everything twice to protect his own integrity. Here is what I believe Michael Burry's life actually teaches us. The most dangerous thing in the world is not ignorance. It is the confident, comfortable, socially reinforced illusion of knowledge. It is the feeling, shared by a crowd, validated by experts, blessed by institutions, that everything is fine, that the system works, that the people in charge have checked and double-checked, and everything is safe. Michael Burry's entire career has been a single, sustained argument against that feeling, not because he is a pessimist, not because he wants things to fail, but because he has the discipline and the courage to look at what is actually true, rather than what is socially comfortable to believe. You do not need to be a hedge fund manager to apply this. You do not need an MD or $1 million fund. You need one thing: the willingness to ask, honestly and without ego, am I seeing this clearly, or am I seeing what I want to see? Am I doing the work, or am I trusting that someone else has done it for me? Every time in history that a crowd convinced itself that something was permanently, unquestionably safe, someone was quietly reading the fine print. Someone was doing the math. Someone was sitting alone in a room, blasting heavy metal, seeing what everyone else refused to look at. If this story moved you, if it made you think differently about conviction, about independence, about what it means to trust your own mind in a world that rewards conformity, share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. This channel exists to tell the stories that change the way you see money, markets, and yourself. Subscribe if you want more. Stay curious, stay independent, and remember, the crowd has never been the smartest person in the room. Be the person in the corner, reading what no one else will read. I'll see you in the next one.